Hey everybody, Josh here, and I'm coming to you from the Meatpacking District in downtown New York City in the middle of Fashion Week. I have some really fun stuff for you today. First up, I sit down with filmmaker Crayton Robey and talk about his documentary film, Making the Boys. This is an inside look at The Boys in the Band, an amazing play and an awesome movie, and we talk about what it meant when it opened in 1969 and how it shaped the gay movement that followed. As I've probably already gushed, The Boys in the Band is one of my all-time favorite movies and plays. So, needless to say, it's a thrill to have with me today the director of a new documentary called Making the Boys, Crayton Robey. It's an inside look at the 40-plus year history of this groundbreaking piece.
We were invisible in 1968.
When people say that The Boys in the Band broke new ground, that's what they're talking about.
There can only be one historically important gay play, and that was Mort Crowley's Boys in the Band.
Hi Crayton, how are you?
I'm cool, Josh.
Thanks so much for coming in. Why did you choose this as the subject of the documentary? Why now? Why Boys in the Band? It's 40 some odd years later. What was the impetus behind making the film?
I think The Boys in the Band was just a great resource for me during my coming out years when I was a teenager, like in Texas. And when I learned that The Boys in the Band was turning 40, and I discovered like the historical significance of this for the gay community, I felt that it just needed to be archived. And I was surprised that it wasn't.
The story, which I was telling our producer earlier this morning, actually lends itself beautifully to be told in a sort of 3-act form of a film. There's, Mart's development as a writer and his sort of life in Hollywood, how he got started, how he was sort of hit rock bottom, came to New York City, wrote this play that he thought no one would ever do. The play takes off like a rocket, and then the sort of 3rd act of like what happens to these people after this great success.
I didn't want to just do a making of documentary, and I just felt that it was just a great opportunity to introduce, I guess, the history to a younger audience, and also to really place this in the historical context, because it really marked the beginning of the conversation that brought our culture to a point so Stonewall could happen, so the gay liberation movement could happen. And I wanted to put that into the piece. And I also felt that Mart was someone that was pretty much out of the closet like all of his life. Right. And when he really finally challenged himself and got a hold of his demons, he was able to create this particular masterpiece. So I was kind of like digging on the fact that this was an artist that really dug into his soul and just expressed himself.
I saw it in London, where it was done in the West End. It's a very emotional and moving experience because as a writer who was writing screenplays at the time, I knew how difficult it was to write about gay stuff openly. Here was this play that was very bold and was a big success.
To see yourself being defined on the stage is a very empowering experience.
It was funny, it was touching, and it was saying, these men are gay and there's nothing at all wrong with them.
What do you think was the sort of connectivity around the piece that, obviously gay people came to see it, but it really had a huge sort of straight following as well?
Well, the thing about it is, first of all, it was workshopped at the Playwrights Unit, and the Playwrights Unit was this really savvy place where all the top playwrights of the day wanted to get their plays workshopped there. It was Edward Albee's company. At that particular time, so much was happening in the world. I think that there was the Black Civil Rights movement that was happening. There was the women's movement. And people were just fucking tired, and they just wanted to fight back, and they wanted to stand up for their rights. And I just think that the timing was just really, really perfect. And I just think that the producers were very smart to say, okay, this is the moment. There was something wonderful that happened with this particular piece because it kind of brought homosexuality out of the closet, where people started saying, oh, this is what it is.
Here it is, 68, it transfers in 69, Stonewall happens in June of 69. 18 months later, what was heralded as this like groundbreaking historic play, now people are sort of picketing and hating, and I never really understood why people were so like on their soapboxes about Boys in the Band.
I think when the Boys in the Band came out, it got a lot of attention, and historically, it is this iconic piece, and I think Mart pissed a lot of people off. I think people like just responded to some of the characters, you know, and I thought that they were caricatures of who we are. People could not necessarily like laugh at themselves or laugh at the situations, you know, and it just, and you know, the coming out process is awful. And I think that's what it puts people in touch with that moment too, you know, it's like because it is so undervalued and we never really get to explore that, you know, and if we could remember like what this piece represented to our world, and it's really kind of crazy that a little play like The Boys in the Band was able to create so much noise for 17 months before the world had basically changed.
But whatever you say about it, you have to acknowledge the bravery of it.
But you'll always be homosexual as well. Always, Michael.
One of the things also that sort of really struck me in the film was that last moment, you know, when Harold says to Michael, "You're always going to be a homosexual, Michael, you know, whatever you do." And the fact that at this time in 68 and 69, there was still, you know, homosexuality was still on the books as this, you know, psychological disorder, and the fact that Mart is saying, no, this is just who you are. I mean, that in and of itself is historic.
It is historic. Who was saying that? He was letting people know that they are going to be who they are, and they need to be who they are, you know.
And that's the part, you know, which I also love, is where you pull in the Christian Sirianos and, you know, these kids, so to speak, you know, who have no clue. You know, you're like, well, Boys in the Band, and they're like, in Christian Siriano's like, well, it sounds like a boy band. Having no understanding truly of what the sort of historical impact is, in a macro level, but also directly impacting their life, that Christian Siriano could talk about his boyfriend on TV and be this little sort of, you know, effeminate boy bouncing around. I mean, he is a descendant of the character Emery. I mean, that's one of the things I don't think people understand, is that the archetypes were based on real people.
Yeah, and I think in fairness to like Christian Siriano and Norm, you know, reason for like doing this is because, you know, this kind of history is like not taught in school, you know, and no one knows about it, and there's no reason why they should. I guess the generation before them, or two generations actually before them, all the guys basically died, and nobody was really talking about this because there was still just a lot of shame that was like involved. And I'm hoping that one day, you know, maybe they'll come to see the movie, maybe they'll see it 10 years down the line, and it will just offer them some wisdom about our legacy, and they can pass it down, because it was an important piece for us, you know.
Well, I think that's also a real testament to your film, which is that you take us through these periods and, you know, this sort of aftermath, this sort of bloodbath, if you will, of what happens just not only to the world, but utilizing the sort of characters and the actors who are in this play and the people surrounding this particular production, and the devastation just in this sort of small little group alone. Using that as sort of a microcosm of what happens in the 80s is really, really powerful. And it was very unexpected for me, and that's what I mean about the third act of this movie, is just really devastating and powerful, and really lands this piece back into a hugely relevant and significant piece that it is. So thank you for that. And thank you for coming in. Congratulations. The film is Making the Boys by Crayton Robey, opening in March. For more information, you can go to firstrunfeatures.com. Next up, I put on my dancing shoes, or rather my dancing boots, and I head down to the old Big Apple Ranch for a two-stepping lesson. We are at the Big Apple Ranch tonight in the Chelsea district of New York City, and I'm going to learn how to two-step and how to country line dance, which has been one of my dreams forever. A nice Jewish boy from Chicago gets to fulfill his fantasy of being a cowboy. My knees hurt and my boobs are shaking, but I have to keep counting in my head. Girl, I am sweating like a whore in church. I never had any idea that it would be quite this, dark. I'm here with John Lee, who's one of the co-proprietors of New York City's Big Apple Ranch. It's Saturday night. I came down for the Valentine's Day party. I learned 2 dances already, and I can't wait to get my pajamas on and get out on the floor. Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime.
Well, tell us a little bit about the Big Apple Ranch. I mean, how did it start? How long have you been in business? And I have to say, before we even get started, thank you, because I've had the best time already.
Great. That's exactly what it's all about. We've been here, we're coming up on our 14th anniversary.
Wow.
The Big Apple Ranch actually was founded out of a former club that closed down, and we gathered together and kept it going. And it's basically, it's here to dance and have a good time. It's not about, even though people do hook up here, it's not about hooking up, it's not about drinking, it's not about all that. You can do that stuff here, but it's about dancing, and it's about partner dancing. It's about dancing with somebody, touching the person. It's like having a little 3-minute date all night long. You just keep having another one, another one, another one. And it's a really, really good way to meet people. It's really fun, it's very relaxing, and there is just absolutely no attitude here at all. It's just a really pleasant place to hang out. It's kind of a throwback, actually, to an earlier era.
Well, I can actually attest to that, because there is no attitude. I mean, we came stumbling in with our camera crews, and you're just like, get in that lesson, and we just like ran in. Everybody was so sweet. This lovely gentleman was like my partner for the first half of the dance lesson, and then we learned the line dance. And I have to say, like, I didn't expect. I'm not a dancer at all, and I had the best time. Like I said, I can't wait to get back out there. When people come to the Big Apple Ranch, what do you hope that they take away with them?
Well, we hope that they have a good time, and we hope that they meet people that they like to hang out with, because that's kind of what it is here. You come, you hang out with your friends, and you dance with them all night long. We have regulars who come in at 9 o'clock and stay until we close at 1 o'clock, and they just want to dance with their friends and have a good time. And so really what we want them to leave here with is that it's a friendly, very nice place to hang out on a Saturday night, where you don't have to have any kind of attitude or stress or anything. It's just a pleasant way to have a good time on a Saturday.
Well, have you had any, it's Valentine's Day, and have you had any weddings as a result of people meeting here at the Big Apple Ranch?
We have indeed. We've had people meet here, and that they have actually gotten married. Several couples, actually. They don't come as often now, because of course now they're nesting, but...
Well, I have to say, I mean, it is one of a really great opportunity to meet people. Like, I don't go out very often, and, you know, I'm not somebody who will, like, you know, hang out in a bar night after night. And this is such a lovely atmosphere. What you guys have created is truly a gift to everybody. I can't wait to get my...
In your pajamas.
In my pajamas. So I can't wait to get my pajamas on, get back out on the floor, and have a really great time and a great rest of the evening. A lot of foot stomping. It's a foot stomping good time. Like, and here I am in my pajamas in public. It seems like this must have been last week's lesson. So I'm sitting terrified that someone's actually going to ask me to dance, because then I'm going to have to put to use what I learned earlier in the evening. And John Lee comes up, and I see him coming, and I'm trying to avoid eye contact, but no such luck. So he dragged me out onto the floor, and I actually two-stepped my way around the floor for the first time ever, and it was so much fun. And he was a really great partner, because he didn't care that I screwed up all the time, and I actually got to spin him around. So I am on my way. One of the things that I do love about this is, you know, same-sex partnering and dancing. And the first place I ever saw it was at a country western bar in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I was so taken by these male-on-male pairs dancing, and it's just like, I loved it so much, and I've been such a huge fan of it. And I've been to so many country western bars throughout the country, but I always stood on the sides and people's like, oh, come on, I'll teach you how to dance. And I've been always too nervous or too paranoid to do it. So I'm so glad I actually came tonight and learned a little bit about two-stepping and learned a line dance, although obviously not all of them. And yeah, it's really beautiful, especially for Valentine's Day. You know, it isn't often that you get to sit next to an icon. So here is my one-on-one conversation with living legend and breathtaking beauty, Isabella Rossellini. I'm sitting here this morning with Isabella Rossellini, and I couldn't be more excited. I've been a fan for years, and it's a great thrill to be able to sit here and talk to you.
Thank you.
So thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
The first question I really had when they said I was going to have the opportunity to speak with you is to ask you, how do you choose the projects that you are involved with, whether it's roles that you play or films that you direct?
Most of the time is really the people that I'm going to work with. And so, for example, in my latest film, Green Porno Seduce Me, it was really the opportunity to work with Sundance and Robert Redford that I admired for so long. And what I admired, it was, and I think that also is true on all the roles that I work, whether it's David Lynch or Guy Maddie or Peter Greenaway, is that I'm more attracted to people who are not repeating a formula, but seeking more ways to use this media or film or internet or moving images, whatever it is, or photography for that matter. Why is that? I don't know, but my father was one of the pioneering of filmmaking, creating a style that was called by critic neorealism, bringing a lot of realism. His film looked like documentaries, and he really had a very strong impact in cinema. And so I think that stayed with me and in my DNA, you know, and so I'm attracted to more experimental filmmaking.
Well, that's a really interesting point. You know, obviously your father was a formidable force in the film industry, and the influence, as you said, is so palpable in what you do. How was that when you were growing up? Like, how was that growing up in that type of family? I mean, you know, I grew up riding a bicycle around a cul-de-sac. Like, how was it growing up for you, and how do you stay so grounded in the things you do?
Well, but I grew up in Europe, where though my mom is Ingrid Bergman, the actress, my father Roberto Rossellini was a revered filmmaker. In Europe, filmmakers or actors are like doctors, lawyers, you know, they are not as revered as here. So, and we never had securities. We never had to be living a, life that was shielded or with security guards. So it was pretty normal upbringing.
And when did you come to the United States?
I came to the United States when I was 20 years old to study English. That's why it was too late. That's why I have an accent. And to study, and then I started to work as a model. So I started working as a model, and then it evolved into becoming an actress. And only lately that I'm not working as a model and working less as an actress due to my age, I went back to the university, and that allowed me to study what I always loved, which was animal behavior. And that study is what inspired my new film that I did for Sundance, which are short films. They are a series of films. Each one is about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes long. We've done 28 of them, coming up with in different seasons of 5 or 6 at a time. And there's about animal behavior and especially addressing how animals mate. Because I know that I knew all my life that I loved animals and I was interested in animals, but I couldn't find many companies to say, come with me, we'll look at worms underneath the rocks. But I knew that when I said, look, there is a bird mating over there, crowds of people came to look at it. So my films are going to be about sex behavior of animals.
And where do we see these sex behavior of animal films?
Well, you know, it's very interesting because it was born as a way to, Robert Redford thought that to use the internet, just as a recycling bin or television, would be limiting. Maybe there was a way to really produce for that media. And that's why he gave me and other people the instruction to make short series of film. Also keeping in mind that the screen might be small, and that's another thing you have to address. So that gave me the art direction of very colorful film, because if you try to look at Lawrence of Arabia or Apocalypse Now in your cellular phone, you don't see the film. So all these issues were addressed, and we were hugely successful on the internet, winning 5 Webbies. I found their live installation. I was just at Art Basel at the Wolfsonian Museum, where we did an installation of my costume. So strangely enough, this experiment, all my costumes and set were also in Toronto at the Royal Ontario Museum, and some of it have been acquired by the Lighthouse Museum and their permanent collection. So this little film that started as an experiment for the internet actually has grown into many things, and not only specifically to the internet, but on television, art installation, museum exhibits.
Well, I mentioned in the introduction, I have been a big fan and certainly watched your career, and you stood out as a real maverick in this industry, and somebody I think that's why, as a gay man, like your characters and you as a performer and a creator and an artist have been so outstanding. What would you say to people? How do you remain true to who you are in this sort of crazy, not even just in the entertainment business, but in the world? Like, how do you stay true to who you are?
Well, is there any other way? I mean, at the end, you could lie, but then lie in Italian, they say lie have short legs, at a certain point. Because I'm a foreigner, because I have an accent, I never thought that I could succeed as much as I have succeeded it. I always thought that the doors to the big Hollywood production will always be close for me because I had an accent. And they were, to a certain extent, So I think that the feeling that, I'm a foreigner, I don't belong, also encouraged me to take alternatives route. And also there was the history of the family. So, as it is, it's the perfect storm. There are many influences, but I think the fact that I felt that I could not be allowed me to find be available for alternative roads. If I had been blonde, blue-eyed, American sweetheart, that could be in big commercial film, maybe I would have done it. I'd be richer. So who knows? I was who I was. I am who I am. I am a foreigner who came to America, who had a history with cinema, but a very alternative history to Hollywood, though my parents were both very established. And so in a way it continued. I didn't know at the time when I was making my choices, but now looking back, I see that my culture has carried me through my choices in life.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk with me today. It was a real pleasure. Well, that about does it for today. Thanks for watching, and I hope you had a good time. And as always, we'll see you again soon. Like that? Oh, he told us we can't do it. Yeah.
Even on the rate?
Yeah. Notorious assholes with living legend. It's just my stomach growling because I'm so hungry. Isabella, are you hungry? You know what I really want, but I'm not going to do it. Pizza. A lot of limos for the fashionistas. Impact in the history. Ugh, fuck. Why do I have to talk so much? Okay, so you know what fucking bugs the crap out of me is that we don't have any public etiquette here in New York City. We don't follow any rules. Like if you go to Europe, people understand like how to line up for a bus or how to take the stairs or the escalators. We have like no clue. I can't tell you how many times I'm like coming down the right side of the staircase and people are lugging their bags up and they make it seem like it's my problem, but yet I'm staying to the right. Stay to the right. I mean, it's the same thing in public. Like I was just at the ATM machine and this woman is standing at the ATM machine like scouring her receipt, like every detail of the receipt while she's still standing there. Get out of the way. I mean, it does make me feel a little bit, and I was saying this to my friends, it does make me feel a little bit impatient and realize like, oh, big deal, it's gonna take 30 seconds. But still, it's all about etiquette. It's all about like understanding the world around you, like people walking down the street for a cross, like nobody else is walking down the street. Anyway, you get my point. Just think about it when you're out in public, that you're not the only one, other people out there. Why do I have to talk so much?